Welcome everyone to a groundbreaking webinar series on inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility, presented by Gaining Vision 2020 in partnership with Connect for Life Charity. I'm Sean Pickard, and we are excited to bring you this transformative series of sessions that explore the interconnected themes of inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. Our mission is to create a platform that celebrates the uniqueness of individuals, promotes equitable practices, and ensures accessibility for all. Join us as we delve into thought-provoking conversations, exchange insights, and learn from experts in the field, all with the aim of fostering a more inclusive, diverse, and accessible society. Welcome to I.D.E.A. Do you know what this means? We like to start each session by acknowledging the land in which we call home. Gaining Vision 2020 acknowledges the lands which constitute the present-day City of Mississauga as being part of the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat and Wyandot Nations. Gaining Vision 2020 recognizes these people and their ancestors as people who inhabited the land since time immemorial. The City of Mississauga is home to many global Indigenous peoples. Gaining Vision 2020 is actively working towards reconciliation by confronting our past and our present, providing space for Indigenous peoples within their territory to recognize and uphold their treaty rights, and to support Indigenous peoples. Gaining Vision 2020 formally recognizes the Anishinaabe origins of our name and continue to make Mississauga a safe space for all Indigenous peoples. Melanie and Sean is a seasoned educator with 25 years of experience and a passionate advocate for inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. As an I.D.E.A specialist, she has been a trusted consultant in these vital areas, offering her expertise to organizations seeking to create inclusive environments. With over a decade of experience facilitating workshops and trainings for professionals, Melanie has honed her skills in empowering individuals and fostering positive change. Ladies and gentlemen, here to speak about tokenism, Melanie and Sean.
Welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining. Today we'll be talking about tokenism, and we all come from different lived experiences. Now this topic may be something you're an expert on, or perhaps just learning. I encourage us all to come and be open. There's no need for guilt, shame, or blame. Please be open to hear what's being said, and if you feel uncomfortable, sit with the emotions for a moment or two. If it is triggering for you, though, I do encourage you to do whatever it takes for your well-being. If you need to pause, come back. We'll be here for you. But let's get started, Sean. And hi, how are you?
I'm doing well, Melanie. Thank you. Hope you're doing well.
I'm great, thanks.
Excellent. So let's talk about the intention of today's session.
Wonderful.
Moving beyond tokenism, empowering genuine representation and inclusion. So we have a couple of objectives here.
Okay.
We want to deepen the understanding of tokenism and foster a deep understanding. Now, we're looking for its definitions, its manifestations in various contexts. We want to explore the negative impacts of tokenism on individuals, communities, and organizations. We'd like to provide real-life examples and case studies to illustrate the dynamics of tokenism and its consequences. We would also like to recognize tokenistic practices. Now, there are behaviors and practices that we all perpetuate. We would like to explore the subtle signs of tokenism, such as performative inclusion or symbolic representation. Encourage participants to critically examine their own actions, attitudes, and organizational practices to identify areas where tokenism may be present. We would also like to explore strategies and best practices to move beyond tokenism and foster genuine representation and inclusion, highlight the importance of creating inclusive spaces that value diverse perspectives and lived experiences. We'd like to provide practical guidance on how to amplify authentic voices, empower marginalized individuals, and cultivate an inclusive culture that goes beyond surface-level representation. We would also like to inspire action and change, empower people to take meaningful action to address tokenism within their spheres of influence, encourage them to advocate for inclusive practices, challenge tokenistic narratives, and promote authentic representation in their personal and professional lives. We'd like to equip people with tools, resources, and actionable steps to drive lasting change and foster genuine inclusivity. Now, there's an awful lot of tongue-tying stuff going on there, Melanie.
Absolutely. It's a mouthful for sure.
And in order to get through some of these objectives, let's go to some definitions.
I think that's a great way to start.
Let's start with tokenism. Tokenism, the practice of only making a symbolic effort of doing a particular thing, especially by recruiting a small number of people from underrepresented groups in order to give the appearance of sexual or racial equity in a workforce.
Yes.
That's a lot.
It is, but you know what? When you think about it, have you heard the term the token blind person, the token
I have indeed.
woman? Yeah, so this is something that still exists today.
Our next definition is representation. Representation focuses on visible differences, such as skin color, gender, disability, or other visible differences. Representation is an important subset of diversity. However, representation is not diversity in and of itself. What do you think of representation?
I think it's really important for us to understand the difference, because you definitely want to have representation of many different marginalized groups in your workplace, but you don't want it just to be a tokenism hire, as they call it, or a diverse hire, to check a box. We want to make sure we understand how they both work hand in hand.
So let's talk about some of the implications of tokenism, Melanie. For an organization, a company, for example, the organizations can, or the implications rather, can be very deep, varied across many different levels. But tokenism in the workplace can have several negative implications for both employees and the overall work environment. Tokenism occurs when an organization or group makes only a superficial effort to include individuals from underrepresented groups, often hiring or promoting them to give the appearance of diversity without addressing the underlying systemic issues. Now, is that something that really still goes on today, Melanie?
Absolutely. They figure if they have so many people from different marginalized groups, it looks good on the outside. But when you actually join the group or you get hired and you're in it, you notice the policies, the procedures, and the way the company's run is not inclusive at all. And in fact, it can drive really good talent out of the company.
That's a very good point about driving the talent out. But let's look at this from the employee perspective.
Okay.
So let's talk about some of the implications of tokenism as an employee. This can have someone feeling undervalued or excluded. They were only hired or promoted as filling a quota, per se. It can also bring about a lack of trust and belonging, right? If people don't feel they're getting their value worth, you don't trust me, I don't belong here.
Absolutely.
I know that's how I'd feel.
Definitely. And again, if you are the only person from a certain group, whether it's a person with a disability, somebody from a particular background, you may feel very isolated and alone, especially if there's no policies and procedures put into place to ensure your protection and that you are a part of the team.
And you see, that really leads to the next point there, right? Where you're feeling not part of the team, but you feel the pressure to represent your entire population, gender, whatever the case may be.
Absolutely. When you think about if it's a person of color, they may be called upon for Black History Month. Well, you should plan the activities if that's the only person in the company who happens to be Black. What pressure that is, and it would be exhausting, and it would always be the person to go to for their perspectives on anything to do with that race. And it's not right, and it does put a lot of pressure on the individual, and then again, it breaks the trust, as you mentioned earlier.
Now, some of the other things that it can do is undermining credibility and expertise. You know, we were talking about not wanting to be there. If you feel you're only there because of the color of your skin or your gender, how do you feel about your opinion?
Not just that, it's people don't necessarily trust them, other employees. So their coworkers may think, oh, that's a diversity hire. They don't know, they're not skilled, they can't do that. Especially in different marginalized groups that have different biases for people, and they really don't feel that they're qualified. They were just brought in because of their background.
Now, we can also get things like limited career growth.
You'll notice tokenism a lot at the lower levels of hiring and frontline workers. You know, when you get into management and leadership, it's not as diverse, and it's hard to promote within, especially if you're being hired because you feel that you have the skill sets, but the company's organization systemic structure doesn't allow for people diverse backgrounds at the top. And that is very discouraging for many people.
Oh, I can understand how that would be very discouraging.
Yeah.
Now, what about employee engagement and productivity? We're looking at all these different things, feeling excluded or the pressure to represent. How are you then as an employee, engagement and your productivity, what's going to happen there?
Well, absolutely. So you're not going to care as much. So you're not going to be focusing as accurately. Your productivity might be a little bit more hesitant. Well, why bother? They don't care. I'm not going to get promoted anyway. And then you're also going to notice if it becomes too much and the environment is stressful, people go on stress leave, they take days off, they just don't show up at all.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
And like you said, they just don't show up at all. That leads to the next point. Challenges with retention, retaining people to do the jobs.
Well, Sean, would you want to stay in a place where you didn't feel like you belonged? If you were the token person with a disability in the company, you felt that they only hired you to check that box, would you stay, or would you look elsewhere where you'd be more included, a place where you belong?
Oh, I'd be looking for another place.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's exactly what happens. Companies that utilize and have tokenism in the company and they're not inclusive lose their talent very, very quickly. There's a lot of staff turnover.
Now, some of the other implications of tokenism, we're talking team dynamics, for example. How does a team work when it's tokenism involved?
Well, again, if some of your coworkers feel you were only hired because of your gender, your ethnic background, or because of your disability, they're not going to trust you. They're not going to feel that you're confident to do the job. So collaboration is not going to be there. That trust isn't going to be there. And even just like the dynamics of the team, you're going to feel that strain. And this is why it's really, really important for the supervisors, the managers, and the leadership to really ensure that representation of all different groups are evident in every step of the way, as well as every level of employees, so that everybody sees everybody is equal.
Now, something else that can come in here is a reinforcement of bias and stereotypes.
Absolutely. Again, if people have certain points of views and certain belief systems, that bias, the stereotypes slip in, and then that is felt by the people around, whether it's the employee that they're feeling that bias towards, or even the team. It's really important for managers and staff and leaders to ensure that training of unconscious bias happens on a regular basis.
And our final implication of tokenism here, this one is one, I'm glad it's at the bottom of the list, but I'm sure it hits a lot higher on other people's list. Okay. And let's talk about damage to the organizational reputation.
Absolutely. When you're looking for a job, you're looking at different companies. I'm sure you've seen this, Sean, the top 100 companies in Canada who to work for. If your company has had a bad reputation of being, known to be having tokenism happen in the workplace, people will talk about it. It's not going to be a secret. It's going to be very well known. And therefore, you're going to lose brand identity and recognition and approval from customers, from definitely potential employees, and it's not going to go well.
Now, moving on to recognizing tokenism. We've talked an awful lot about what it is and different ways it can creep up, both for an employee and a company.
Yeah.
But let's talk about what it actually is and how to recognize it.
Okay.
So things like a lack of diversity of cross levels. We were talking about this briefly earlier, where there's less diverse peoples the higher up in a company goes. What do you think on that?
Well, you feel a lot of companies have a lot of leadership. They're all men. There isn't a lot of women up there, or perhaps they're all white. Perhaps there's no different races, and definitely very rarely do you see a leader with a disability. So it's very common, and again, it trickles down. So you got to set the tone of the company from your leadership. So this is a very important one.
Now, moving on to focusing on visibility rather than inclusion. Tokenism often focuses on showcasing diverse employees, but not so much addressing the underlying reasons, right? It just looks good. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I've seen this happen a lot. Managers will get really creative, and let's just say they're doing a presentation for a client. They'll have a woman, a man, somebody with different background, different race. So there's a variety, almost like the Rainbow Nation, as they call it, something that shows diversity. But really behind the scenes, these people have been plucked out of different groups to paint a picture. And this is unfortunate because if that's not happening in the everyday business, then you're going to find that those employees, when they go to give those presentations, they're not giving it their all, and they're probably not going to make that sale or pitch properly.
Very good thing to keep in mind there. Now, let's talk about inconsistent inclusion efforts. I'm sure this is a problem for most facilities where a project to get started or something to get done, or things only seem to happen when someone complains, for example.
Yes, absolutely. So what we find with diversity and inclusion training, it's sporadic. It's when those special days come up, when you know you have to check the boxes and do compliance. Perhaps it's because there's been a complaint, like you mentioned, or maybe it's a holiday or a special day coming up. They want to add that in. If it's not consistently happening throughout the year, 365 days a year, then it's just brought in when they think it's appropriate. And that's another huge sign, a red flag, if you will.
A very big red flag.
Yeah.
Now, another thing that we have here, we did touch on briefly before, which is isolated representation, or just that single person representing. How do you recognize if it's always, is it just always the same person coming up, or?
It could be the same person, or let's just face it, okay, I've heard this a lot. Well, men are the better salespeople. So the whole sales team is men, and you have the one woman because you have to, or at least the company feels you have to. But in fact, women have a very different way of sales. They have that kind touch. They have that personal engagement with people. And sometimes that's a really good strategy for some types of clients. So by having a diverse team and not just having that token employee, you're going to make sure that you're going to have a vast and diverse clientele.
And our final one here, a lack of meaningful contributions. So if someone feels they're token employees, do they make all that effort?
They don't make the effort, and they don't make the effort, but also they will, it's almost like a domino effect. They don't make the effort. The team players say, she's not doing it, why should I? He's not doing it, why should I? And then it's very visible to the end product, the clients, the stakeholders. And if management and supervisors don't catch this quickly, it can do a lot of damage to the company as a whole.
Now, a couple other things that we can have going on here when we're looking to recognize tokenism are things like exclusion from decision making.
And this is so important because we need to have diverse perspective when you're having a decision made, because you and I see things differently. It doesn't mean your perspective is right and mine's wrong. It just means we look at it differently. So having both perspectives when you make a decision will help make an educated decision that will hopefully represent the entire company. So the more people at the table to make decisions, I know people like, oh, well, the leader should just make the decision. But if you have an all-white leadership team, you're not considering other elements of people that are actually in the public, people you serve. So really, truly, you're not getting the best decision-making team.
Now, something else to consider when regarding tokenism, performative language and marketing. I got to be honest, Melanie, what does that mean?
Good question. So when you're promoting a company, whether it's in commercials, ads, print, social media, if you see a group of people from various diverse backgrounds and you go to your interview and you walk in and it's all the same people, there's no women in the group, there's no people with different backgrounds or races, it's misrepresentation. So basically, we have to, as a company, be very mindful of how we're marketing our company, what we stand for, as well as any job postings. Because you'll find, when you use terminology like diverse, inclusive in your job postings, and then the person comes in for the interview and they see something completely different, misrepresentation. And remember, that person talks to people. But it's not just about employees, it's about any stakeholders that come in. If they feel that the company is misrepresenting themselves, they may have questions about doing business with them.
Okay, I get that better now. Just these big words, Now, something else that we should probably talk about here is resistance to critical feedback. So,
do you like being told you're wrong, Sean?
No.
Do you like to be told when you're doing something wrong?
I like to know if I need to fix something, yes.
Well, most people would, but leaders in power don't like to hear any complaints. They think it's not necessary because they've made these decisions. So you're questioning their thought processes. And this is what a lot of employees who are tokenized feel. There's no point in going and giving feedback because it's being criticized and they're being dismissed almost.
It's not going to be listened to anyway, so
That's
why would
right.
I say anything?
Exactly. And then they stay and they stew and they're unhappy and they finally end up leaving.
So next up, we have a little activity, a tokenism activity here, Melanie.
Yes. So I want everybody to take a minute. I want you to think of your own particular workplace. And I want you to imagine the representation in your company. Is it inclusive? Is it diverse? Or do you have tokenism happening in your workplace? Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, no, it can't be us. No, for sure not. We've got all these people. But really take a deep look. Sean, I'm going to ask you to think about your team. How diverse are you?
We are really diverse across the spectrum of individuals with disabilities.
Now, is there any form of tokenism?
Tokenism?
Yeah,
No.
No. And again, what you have to be mindful of is it just the leader thinking that? But I know your team, and I can say it's definitely diverse. There's no tokenism. You have people from different genders, different abilities, different races, and different lived experiences, sexual orientation, all of that. So you're very, very diverse and inclusive, which is great. But there are some companies out there that stay away from certain individuals, certain groups of individuals.
You see, I understand that, Melanie, but I don't understand at the same time.
What don't you understand?
See, as a leader, I know where I'm confident. I know my community, my world. I don't know everybody's. So having these different people that I can tap on the shoulder and say, am I wrong here? Makes it a lot easier to put out a quality product because we've gotten rid of the opportunity for the screw-up fairy to visit in the earlier stages.
And you're getting diverse perspectives, right?
Absolutely.
And this is the way we want leaders to think about everything. Because again, look at the world we live in, how diverse it is, and how many different people from different backgrounds, walks of life. It is so important for us to have everybody's perspective. And we may not have employees from all different areas, but if we have a huge representation at the table, you're probably going to do a really good business.
So let's talk about the impact of tokenism, Melanie. We're talking about individuals that may feel undervalued, isolated at the workplace. You know, they might perceive themselves as only being there to fill a quota and not so much there for their skills and their contributions. Yeah. We're also talking about distrust and disengagement.
Definitely.
People, right, they're just going to back off.
Absolutely. And again, if you're in that situation, Sean, it's a human nature to feel that way. And I think it's really important factors for all companies to think about this.
Another one that I'd really like to talk about is stifled creativity and contributions. Yeah. This is when someone may be less likely to speak up. They don't want to share their perspective. This is when someone is feeling that their input is only attributed to their identity.
It's true. You figure if you don't feel confident and like you are included, you're going to stay quiet, and people are going to lose out on the creativity of that individual, that perspective. And again, you feel stifled. You feel like you're trapped. You're not going to be wanting to contribute as much as you would otherwise.
Now, there are a few more here, but that's really a barrier and to being able to advance your own career.
100%. And again, if you noticed in the leadership above you, if you want to advance your career within the company, and you notice there's nobody up at the top that looks like you, then you're not even going to try to go there because it's like, what's the point? I know they're not going to hire me. And that's very disheartening.
When you feel you can't get there? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about some of the negative impact on team dynamics that tokenism can have.
Oh boy, yeah.
This is where colleagues might resent a tokenized individual, perceiving them as being given preferential treatment.
Yeah, because again, if you're being selected to go and represent, to make that image look good on the outside all the time, your colleagues may think that you're being preferred over them, but in fact, it's for a reason that people really don't understand. But that also, when somebody looks different than you also get sometimes a little bit uncomfortable. So that also can play a factor into it.
Now, what about things like retention challenges? How can tokenism contribute to not being able to retain people?
Well, again, if you're brought in as a token hire and you're feeling isolated and alone and not being valued for your skill set, just for who you are, what you look like, then perhaps you're going to look elsewhere to ensure that you're going to be feeling like you're included more so in a different company. And retention for employees is always a hard sell, no matter what, in this economic status. But when you're feeling that you're tokenist, then you're going to just leave.
I can understand how that would happen. Mm-hmm. And our last one here, Melanie,
yes,
really kind of has me bothered, shall we say?
Okay.
Because how can tokenism reinforce stereotypes?
Okay, so think about it. So we're stereotypes all the time. You know, women should be doing
housework, for example.
Exactly. Okay, and if you only have one woman in the group and you're always asking them to make coffee, if you're always making them do the housekeeping or perhaps cleaning the bathroom, you know, in a small office, that's stereotyping. Why isn't the man doing it? There's a lot of things that can definitely do this. So this happens a lot, especially in smaller companies, but whenever there's tokenism at any company, you'll notice that it's just reinforcing stereotypes. And we have to be mindful of that and make sure that everybody is treated equally.
Now, some of the things that we're looking to do here, we want to make sure that we're distinguishing inclusion from tokenism.
Yes.
So, intent versus action.
Mm-hmm.
Tokenism often involves actions taken solely for appearance to meet diversity quotas without genuine commitment to inclusion. Yeah. Whereas inclusion involves intentional efforts to create an environment where all individuals feel valued, respected, and empowered to contribute fully based on their skills and experience.
Absolutely, and you'll notice in the policies, the procedures, and the system of the company itself, inclusion should be deeply ingrained in it.
So depth of efforts for inclusion is where the efforts are deep-rooted and systemic, aiming to address biases and create equitable opportunities and foster a culture of belonging. What do you think, Melanie?
Well, definitely. So if you see inclusion embedded in the policies, the procedures, from the recruitment stage all the way down to the performance, day-to-day activities, then it's going to be part of the culture of the company. And people will know it. It's not going to be like an afterthought or feel like, oh, it's just an add-on. It is going to be felt in every element. And the importance of continuous training for everybody about diversity and inclusion. All of this becomes habit after you keep talking about it. You're educating, you're learning, and you're walking the walk, talking the talk. But with tokenism, on the other hand, you're not going to have that ingrained in the roots of the company. It's just going to be like, oh, we forgot this, add that, we need to have, mark that, check that box off.
So another notch on it then.
Exactly.
So carrying on with distinguishing inclusion from tokenism, let's talk about the focus on representation versus belonging. So for tokenism often prioritizes representation by ensuring the presence of diverse individuals without ensuring their full integration and sense of belonging. For inclusion emphasizes creating a sense of belonging for all employees where they feel valued and empowered to bring their authentic selves to work. What do you think of that, Melanie?
I love belonging, and that's the way all workplaces should be, because can you imagine being able to go to work every day, just being yourself, doing what you do best, and just feeling like part of the family? When the pressure of being the only person representing a certain group of individuals, that's extra pressure on the individual, and you have to act a certain way. You feel like everybody's watching all the time. The microscope is always on you to represent, and in fact, that's extra stress that's not needed, and you're feeling overwhelmed then.
Well, let's talk about the participation in decision-making as well. Token employees may be excluded from decision-making processes or only involved in decisions that directly relate to their identity and background. Whereas inclusion involves actively seeking diverse points of view.
Exactly. Again, it goes back to the leadership team. If it's not diverse, they don't want to hear from other people's perspectives because they think they know what's best for the company. But if you want a diverse perspective, you're going to invite everybody to have a say at the table. And I think that's the best way to go. Not only does it make good business sense, but it makes everybody feel a sense of belonging.
So let's talk about some strategies to address tokenism. Things like create a culture of inclusion. You want to foster a culture where all employees feel valued, respected, and empowered to contribute their unique perspectives and ideas. Educate leaders and employees. Provide training and education on diversity, inclusion, and unconscious bias to raise awareness and promote understanding. Establish inclusive policies and practice. Implement policies that promote fairness, equity, and diversity at all levels of the organization, from hiring to career advancement. Encourage diverse representation in decision-making. Actively involve diverse employees in decision-making processes to ensure their voices are heard and perspectives considered. Create supportive networks. Establish employee resource groups or affinity groups to provide a sense of community and support for underrepresented employees. Measure and monitor progress. Set clear diversity and inclusion goals, regularly track progress, and hold leaders accountable for achieving these objectives. Empower tokenized individuals. Provide opportunities for professional growth, skill development, and leadership roles for all employees, including those of underrepresented groups. Promote inclusive leadership. Train leaders to be inclusive and empathetic, fostering an environment that values diversity and actively addresses bias. Encourage open dialogue. Create spaces for open and honest conversation about diversity and inclusion. Allow employees to share their experiences and perspectives. You also want to celebrate diversity and success stories. Recognize and celebrate the achievements and contributions of diverse employees to reinforce the value they bring to the organization. Address bias in performance evaluations. Implement measures to mitigate bias in performance evaluations and ensure fair and objective assessments. Review hiring and promotion processes. Evaluate hiring and promotion processes to identify and eliminate potential biases and ensure fair and equitable selection process. Engage external support. Seek guidance from diversity and inclusion consultants or experts to help identify and address tokenistic practices. And the last one, acknowledge and learn from mistakes. There's a lot there, Melanie.
There is, and these strategies are great. And again, nothing's going to be perfect and work for every workplace, but I think a few really stood out to me. The ERG, the employee resource groups, are something that's really powerful tool. It's where people of different backgrounds and groups can come together and really discuss how things can progress. And it also helps the company because they can tap on those ERGs to give perspective and help with those decisions. But also the fact of the training and ensuring the policies and procedures represent inclusion so that this way it's ingrained in the system. It's going to help with the hiring of people. It's not going to be tokenistic. It's going to be inclusive. And that's a huge difference. And of course, learning from our mistakes is vital. We're not going to be perfect. And it's kind of one of those things that are ongoing, that as we train and as we have new employees come in and we train them, we're going to have situations that will arise. That's human nature. But addressing it right as it happens and watching it grow. We learn, we pick ourselves up, brush ourselves off, and move forward.
Let's talk about allyship and advocacy. Allyship and advocacy can help address tokenism by promoting genuine inclusion and representation. When individuals actively support marginalized groups and advocate for their voices to be heard, it can lead to meaningful change. Tokenism occurs when people from underrepresented backgrounds are included superficially without having a genuine impact on decision-making or power dynamics. By fostering allyship and advocacy, we can work towards dismantling tokenism and creating more equitable spaces where diverse perspectives are valued and respected. What do you think of that, Melanie?
You know, allyship is a powerful tool. It's important for us all to understand the part we can play as allies, but also when it comes to advocacy, speaking up when we see something that isn't right, that is happening in the workplace. When people stay silent, nothing changes. Those individuals that are being tokenized may feel that they can't speak up, and if they are going to speak up, they'll be looked upon differently. It's important that other colleagues or people in the company become allies, or even external partners, to definitely advocate for people and different topics. I think this is powerful and important for all inclusive organizations to definitely utilize advocacy and allyship.
Very important.
Yeah.
Now, let's take a moment to look at intersectionality and tokenism.
Yes.
We're talking about where everyone comes together. So things like superficial representation. Tokenism can sometimes occur in the context of intersectionality when individuals from underrepresented groups are included solely to give the appearance of diversity without genuinely addressing the complexity of their multiple identities. What's going on there, Melanie?
Okay, so we know that everybody has multiple layers. We have different aspects. Myself, I'm a woman, I'm Caucasian, but I also have a disability. So there's many aspects to me. If they're only saying, oh, she's the woman, I'm representing the whole group as a woman, that could be problematic because there's other intersectionalities to who I am that they're ignoring because they've just checked one box. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot more sense
Okay.
now. The next point we have here is the misunderstanding of intersectional experiences. Tokenism may lead to a lack of understanding or consideration of the unique challenges and experiences faced by individuals with intersecting identities. What does that say, Melanie?
So again, if you generalize and you only go based on what you think you know, and you're not looking at many different elements to a person. So again, I'll use you as an example. You're a man, you're Caucasian, and you happen to have a brain injury. But if I'm only focusing on your brain injury, I may be missing other things. So I have to also consider the whole package of Sean. I have to really do that, otherwise it's going to be a misunderstanding. I can maybe understand that you're a man and forget about the brain injury, but that's part of who you are. So we really need to be clear in understanding all the elements, all the different identities people identify with, in order for us to really feel that we're including everybody.
So let's talk about the amplification of token voices. In some cases, token individuals may be expected to represent and speak for all members of their various intersecting identities. And this places an unfair burden on the person. Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Well, Sean, imagine you being the only person speaking for all men. Well, your experience is different from a black man's, is different from a man who may have a different disability. So that's a huge responsibility, but this is what happens with tokenized individuals at work. They are expected to carry it, but again, people aren't looking at the intersectionality of this individual, and perhaps their intersectionality is different from somebody else's. So we have to be careful not to generalize, not to be allowing our biases to get in place, and not to put so much responsibility on somebody.
That's a very good point, putting so much on someone. Mm-hmm. Now let's take a look at a lack of genuine inclusion. Mm-hmm. Tokenism can prevent true inclusion and meaningful participation of individuals with intersecting identities. When their voices are not genuinely valued, their perspectives may not be taken into account in decision-making processes, leading to missed opportunities for diversity. Mm-hmm. What do you think of that one, Melanie?
Well, again, I think it really comes down to the leadership. If people feel that, oh, they're just hired because we needed to check a box, they're not going to trust their opinions or their judgment and not listen actively to what they have to say, which might very well help make a huge critical decision.
And I think the next one, I'm really going to need your help with explaining it to me.
Okay.
Let's talk about intersectionality as a tool for change. On the positive side, recognizing intersectionality can be a powerful tool to challenge tokenism. By understanding the unique challenges faced by individuals with intersecting identities, it becomes clear that true inclusion requires acknowledging and addressing the different layers of discrimination and privilege they experience. What does that say?
Okay, so again, all of us are unique individuals. We have many different elements to ourselves. First, we have to understand ourselves and be comfortable enough to share these identities with others, because all of us have privilege in different areas, whether it's, you know, based on your race, your gender, your education, your position, all of these things. And in order to feel comfortable with ourselves, then we have to let others see the different elements and identities we represent, because judgment and bias and discrimination shines through when you don't understand. It comes because we speak to what we think we know, or our opinions or belief systems. So this is a very loaded one, but it's so important. And again, when you have different intersectionalities, it's more than what meets the eyes. It's never judge that book by its cover, because it's very in depth.
Absolutely in depth. Now, bringing all of this together, Melanie, we talked about some definitions. We talked about tokenism activity. We talked about recognizing tokenism, allyship and advocacy. How would you put everything together with what we've just spoken about?
It's a topic that we need to definitely be aware of, Sean, and we have to be aware because it's happening all the time. And we can make change. We have an active role to play in our organizations, in our companies, in the community, because one day we may be that individual that's tokenized, and we don't want to ever have to face that. And I encourage everybody to definitely take time to look at your workplace. And if you're feeling tokenized, if you feel that tokenism is happening in your workplace, speak up, don't stay silent, and help make change. It's so very important.
Well, that's all the time we have for right now, Melanie. I'd like to thank everyone who's come by and joined us today. If you're looking for more information about this, please reach out to Connect for Life at connectforlife.charity@gmail.com or Gaining Vision 2020 at gainingvision2020@gmail.com. I'm Sean Pickard. That's all the time we have for now. Melanie?
Thanks so much, Sean. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Again, please take care of yourself, and until next time.